Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mile High Sports Symposium. I am your host, JT Matthews, at JTMatthews01 on Twitter, and I'm here with my co-host and the doctor, Nicholas Manning, at DR_N_Manning on Twitter. I got it this time. I didn't mess it up. It's been a long time since I felt confident this time. I double-checked before we started because my brain retention is not good right now. But we're here. We're making it happen. This last week we had very different weeks. We did
different weeks.
You had one in Mexico.
Yep.
With your significant other.
Yep.
I had one with 8 children.
Yep.
At my house.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to say about them.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's not the same for sure.
How was Mexico?
It was great, man. I mean, overall, everything has their ups and downs, but we had opportunity to swim with some dolphins.
Yeah, I saw the picture. That looked dope.
So I did. And
how was it?
Literally like one of the greatest experiences in the history of the world.
Really?
Yeah, it was phenomenal.
I've never done it. I don't know if I would do it. It just doesn't appeal to me. It's a pretty big fish, and I feel like, if it wanted to do some damage, it could. I know that sounds crazy, but I think those things kill sharks, and I don't swim as good as a shark. So
they could, yeah, for sure. But I trusted the animal, and it came through for me. So it was fun, man. How strong they are, how smart they are, how gentle they can be. It was just like getting a candy store for sure.
That's awesome. Well, hopefully you got some R&R, come back a little recharged, talk about some, I was going to say Broncos sports, some Colorado sports, not just the Broncos, but we are going to start with the Broncos. Some news broke today. Broncos signed Josh Reynolds, previously of the Detroit Lions, to a 2-year, $14 million deal. Just kind of want your base reaction to that signing. I know the Broncos free agency has been a little lackluster, a lot of that due to the cap situation they found themselves in with the whole Russell Wilson contract situation. Does this move the needle for you? Does this do anything for you specifically?
No. No, it doesn't at all. Not that Josh Reynolds is a bad player or anything like that. I think Josh Reynolds is a good player. It's redundant to say the least, right?
Yeah.
So 6'3", 200-pound receiver, PFF grade, not too bad, like 69. Nice. That said, just not really providing anything that is, that the team didn't have. Had 40 catches last year for 608 and 5 touchdowns. So not bad, but is it Tim Patrick insurance? Is it Cortland Sutton? Just what does he provide that's different from what's in the room? And maybe it's just, hey, you know what? We're just going to get as many good players on good contracts as possible. That said, that's for potentially, $7 million per. I mean, it's up to, right? So it's not exactly a 2-year, $14 million deal, incentives, all that good stuff. So the player is really good. Just what's the plan? I've liked some of the moves. They're small in stature, guys that can provide some good play. But are we rebuilding or are we not? Right. So that's what I don't know. And this move doesn't help me understand that at all.
Yeah, I wonder the same. It does feel redundant, like you said. I wonder what the thought from the front office / coaching staff is with that signing. Like you said, maybe Tim Patrick insurance. I mean, it's pretty clear that we've needed someone to kind of fill that gap in the last few years with injuries. Is that a good reason to get him? I don't know. It does feel redundant, like you said. We're going to have some good sure-handed receivers with some size, though. So, if you're going just for possession and yak, maybe, draft a guy that can kind of spread the field a little bit more. Maybe it'll come together. But yeah, as of right now, I like the player. I like Josh Reynolds. I think he was a good addition, just on paper, but as far as the scheme and where he fits and what the expectation is for him in this offense, I think, it's hard. It's the other part that's hard is we don't know the quarterback yet. And so, I mean, if you're thinking you're going to get a quarterback, a young quarterback, you've got a lot of sure-handed big targets for this guy now. So maybe that's the play.
I mean, it doesn't hurt, right? Average 15 yards a reception, 4.5 yards after the catch. Passer rating when targeted of 118.8. So not terrible for sure. Okay. I think probably would come to the Broncos being, one of the higher rated pass catchers from yesterday. I think it's an upgrade from what Jerry Jeudy provided. I think a much more consistent, well-rounded player. So I think your take is right on, right? So if the plan is to have, guys that give you, catch radius, you can miss a little high sometimes and still have an opportunity for success. Then there are worse players to get. I think it's interesting that Marvin Mims, what's that role going to be? Now is that your fourth option?
Right.
And I think it's insurance for the other two guys.
Yeah.
I hope that both remain on the team after Tim Patrick's restructure. I would assume he would be. Cortland did get $2 million roster bonus a couple weeks ago by still being on the roster, but $2 million is not exactly gonna hurt anything if they decide to make a move. I think it gives them the flexibility to do it. And the room is better. So what does that mean for Jalen Virgil? What does that mean for Brandon Johnson? I think those are some interesting players that probably aren't going to get their shot here. So all in all, it's the player is good. The money is good. The plan is still, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
I mean, I think it'll probably be a little bit revealed as we get closer to the draft, or maybe not until draft night, or, the days following the draft. So it's kind of hard. It's very hush around Dove Valley. We're not hearing much from the coaching staff. We're not hearing much from the front office, which in a way is nice, right? Like we've seen regimes that are less cautious with what they put out there. And so it's nice to kind of have a leadership group that is keep things close to the vest. We're kind of left guessing in the media or as fans, which can be frustrating, but I think it's nice. It's a nice change of pace. And I think we'll all just kind of accept when that time rolls around, when we kind of get to figure out what the plan is moving forward. I think we'll just kind of fall in line. Like, no, there's not speculation about oh, maybe we take this quarterback and then they don't, and then we all fall apart. It's kind of nice to let's just wait and see. Sometimes we don't need to know what's going on in the back room sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, if we know what's going on, they're not doing a very good job of it, right? So there is, I think that the plan, the plan is in action. What we're noticing, or what we can notice, is where have they not made moves, right? So we brought in a defensive lineman. The team has brought in inside linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
The team has brought in a safety, and now the team has brought in a wide receiver. It's essentially been the moves. There hasn't been any additions to the edge room, to the corner room, to the quarterback room, to the offensive line. I lied. I'm sorry. They brought in Perth. So backup swing tackle, which probably means that Cam Fleming. There we go. Thank you. I appreciate everyone's help pushing the minutia. Help me get there.
No idea where you're going.
That's probably gone, but no starters in action. And so it seems like as we get closer to the draft, those are probably going to be areas that we're going to see additions. So, and maybe they're leaving the opportunity to go younger in those areas and have a draft pick that can come contribute earlier. And maybe they really do feel that good about Riley Moss. Maybe they do feel really good about their offensive line. They feel good about Baron Browning and Nick Bonito and Cooper and Drew Sanders on the edges. And so if that's the case, sweet. Sweet.
It's just like, yeah, it's hard. It's hard because like I wonder if it more this year. So if we're talking rebuild, right? Well, this has kind of been a word that's been in Broncos fans' mouths since we moved off of Russ and moved off of Justin Simmons and a number of guys. We're kind of just letting them walk. It's one of those things that maybe you just see what you have this year. And the guys that were drafted last year and that were drafted before you got here for Sean Payton, like, let's let these guys compete, see who's got a little bit of dog in them, see what's where we feel like the upside is with some of these guys, and then make some moves from there. I think the more I've thought about it, I feel, and I don't know that this is true, I have no sources, but I feel as though the Broncos will be more conservative in the draft. I don't think that they are going to make big moves to get up and get a quarterback. I think they will be opportunistic if someone slides and they feel that there's an opportunity to get someone that they believe in, then I think they will. But the more and more you look at these mocks and the more and more you hear about these guys gaining momentum, these quarterbacks specifically, I don't know that we have the assets to be able to move up and get one of those guys. If you have to move up into the top 5, it's just going to be hard without a second round pick. Then you are leveraging next year's picks potentially. I don't know that you want to do that right now. You've gone how many years in a row without having quality day 2 picks. And I think you kind of see that. I think the depth has suffered a little bit. And I think the more that things are kind of shaking out and the less that they're doing in free agency, you can see that the focus isn't necessarily on winning a Super Bowl this year. Not that it was going to be a Super Bowl anyways, most likely, but the focus is on, I think, just assessing where we are, meeting people where they're at on this roster and getting a feel for this young talent. And then, maybe next year's the year, we see how these young guys do and end up wherever we end up in the draft conversation. And then, at least the following year, maybe, I don't know if you have full assets, but you will be closer to having full assets, or at least you'll have your more valuable picks.
You got them all again back next year.
Mm-hmm.
I think it all hinges on what they do with that round 1 pick. I think that will determine a ton about what they think of this team. And I don't know that they're mailing it in for a season. I think that they want their team to win.
Of course.
I do think they are being very intentional about their offseason signings, which you can't spend money to fix stuff every year. You can't always win the offseason. Teams that always do that usually are not very good. So I think that one thing is true. Hopefully they don't need 2 seasons to assess the roster. If that's the case, Sean Payton isn't as good as we hope he is.
Right.
I think maybe they believe that there is more within the roster than maybe some of us do. And maybe that's a really good sign. Maybe they saw, Zach Allen's late season push is a real big positive. Baron Browning was quite the player when he came back. Nick Bonito, I think, had a really good 10-game stretch where you really saw what was there. They see Riley Moss in practice. I don't. So I don't know what we have in Riley Moss. So I don't know what to be expected. I would have assumed, a bridge starter. That's where I think the Josh Reynolds signing comes in a little interesting. I think using that money for a player of that caliber in the cornerback room would have been a really good idea. Just a vet, hedging your bet a little bit there. There's no explosion really in the running back room outside of Jaleel McLaughlin. maybe Javonte comes back and maybe that's what they're saying. They probably got to see him get some medical checks since the season ended, and maybe that looks really, really promising. The tight end room it's Greg Dulcich and Troutman again.
Yeah.
They like Lucas Kroll, but those are, you're not expecting, those guys to come in and really provide you with what I think Sean Payton's offenses have. They've had a tight end that has been a really productive presence over the field, over the middle of the field. And those are also, I think that there's some really good players at those positions in this draft. And so, maybe that's one where they feel like they can, with the picks that they have, be able to get some really good players. What they do at quarterback will be really interesting. I definitely would love for them to come away with a guy that can be the guy. I want them to also do that without mortgaging, because to outbid Minnesota, for instance, is going to be really, really difficult. It's, future picks all over, because Minnesota has 2 firsts and one of their first this year is already ahead of you. So it's going to be tough sledding. So I think that Sean Payton has a quarterback in mind and feels really, really confident that that quarterback can be a really big player for them. So I hope that is right. I hope that arrogance that Sean Payton has hits the spot, because I don't have that kind of arrogance right now. And we'll see how it goes. What up, Lainey?
Oh, you don't have.
Sorry, I got someone crashing the party over here.
That's
say hi to everyone.
What's up, G? Hi, baby.
Well, let's move into some Nuggets talk, because it's been a minute. As far as the Broncos go, we'll definitely be, that's going to be a big focus for us moving forward. But we got some teams in town that are just slaying it right now, and the Nuggets are. I don't know if I would. I think that they are consensus. Probably everyone considers them to be the front runners for a title run, a title repeat. Yeah. I think obviously Boston's the other team that individuals throughout, more popular media feel as though that's probably the crash course through into the finals. But let's focus in on the Western Conference. The Nuggets are going to finish with a top 3 seed, maybe top 2 seed, hopefully the top overall right now. They do stand alone at number 1, I believe, with Oklahoma City, I think half a game behind. I want to start talking matchups. I want to start talking first-round matchups. I know we've got about 10 games left, somewhere around there, until the playoffs happen, and there's going to be some jockeying for position. But I think the picture's getting a little bit clearer about who might be, some of those playing teams. If I just want to know who you think. Do you think that any of the teams at the bottom of this division can present a tough first-round matchup for the Nuggets to start?
First, let me go back to odds. They are the head and shoulders above the rest, kind of a favorite to come out of the West, plus 290. Clippers are next at plus 650. So to win $100, all that good stuff, you got to lay down, or you win 290 if you lay 100, and so not too bad. But Boston is the favorite at plus 200. So it looks like those teams might be on a collision course. Are there any matchups that I would rather not see? I would rather not see the Suns if you didn't have to.
Yeah.
And I probably wouldn't want to see the Clippers if I don't have to. The Clippers are set right now to play the Pelicans in the 4-5 matchup.
That'd be
feel better about the Pelicans. But to be honest with you, not exactly ones I feel pretty good with where the Nuggets are and who they can beat. You're looking to probably face Oklahoma City in the Western Conference Finals, regardless, because you're both probably jockeying for that 1 or 2. And then you got the Suns, who are right now aligned in that 7-8 matchup against the Kings. So maybe that team is the team that you're going to get first. Definitely would rather it be the Kings, even though they haven't really had a lot of success with either team. Or I'm sorry, with the Kings more as of late. But the trio of Booker, Beal, and Durant, I think really, that 3 is as good of a 3 as there is in the NBA. But I still really like Denver's chances in those matchups. But any given every other day matchup, and it's not the same as Sundays. But what about you? Any that you're really worried about?
Yeah, I think the Suns do present a big challenge, and only for this reason. I think they are deeper than they were last season. They pushed us to 6 games last season, and with what I think is a inferior team to what they have this season. Though they haven't really had a lot of time. That core hasn't had a lot of time together to gel. They do concern me, though. I mean, Durant's a guy that can get you a few games. I would say by himself. Generally, I don't know that I feel like he could get, more than 1 game by himself against the Nuggets. But I think Booker's a guy who can get you a game. And then the Nuggets they've been a consistently efficient 3-point shooting team, but they're not a volume 3-point shooting team. Yep. And I think that if you run into a game, we played the Suns and lost in overtime, and Grayson Allen had, 9 threes or something in that game. If their role players can kind of provide that punch outside of their stars, then I think that does become a little bit problematic, a little bit scary for a first round matchup. Now, I would still take the Nuggets to win it, but that trio, that's some good ball players though. There, I mean, you're talking about first ballot Hall of Famer and Durant, and you're talking about Booker, who you may see in that conversation at some point, depending on what his career success looks like. He's still fairly young, has some time. But, we've seen him have great moments in the playoffs where he shot whatever last year, 70+% against the Nuggets. And then we've seen performances like in Game 6 where he just was a no-show, And so I think that there is some variance there. There's some added pieces. But of all the teams that I wouldn't want to match up against, it's the Suns. As for the Kings, you mentioned the Kings. I wouldn't be as worried about the Kings, though I think there are some players there that give us problems, and De'Aaron Fox is one of those. We've had a hard time containing his speed in the past. He's a guy that's had pretty good stat lines against Denver. I think that Jamal is a good defender, maybe not a great on-ball defender, and so he needs help with a matchup like that, and that could cause some issues. Malik Monk's a guy that's kind of torched the Nuggets off the bench, so we'll see what the matchup is, but I'd say the Suns are probably the team that frighten me the most.
Yeah. Hey, you list them all. Plus, Yusuf Nurkic plays pretty good against Joker.
He gets up for those games for whatever reason.
Yeah,
he gets up for
rivalry, I guess, or whatever. He's still scoring to that the Nuggets, picked one brother over the other, and he's that scorned one. But it's a tough matchup, I think, for anyone. I think Phoenix is a good team. They're playing pretty good basketball right now. All of the guys look to be playing together. The big 3. So it is by far, I think, the most difficult matchup, especially early on. But a matchup that I feel good, and I believe they play in a couple of days? Question mark?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So that one will be interesting because I do think the last matchup, the Suns were pretty shorthanded, and so that's why I think that one was even more of a shocker because of how hot they got, who their key contributors were, and and who was missing. So I think that this is a team that the Nuggets are keeping an eye on. I doubt that they will underestimate them a second time.
Yeah, I don't think so. And I wanted to ask about the play-in. Obviously we could end up with one of those other play-in teams, which right now stands as the Lakers and Golden State. Any concerns about either of those two teams in a first-round matchup?
No.
Okay.
Nope. I mean, the Warriors are not the Warriors. I mean, they're barely at 500 right now. For a 4-game stretch, do you think that they can rekindle? I don't think so. If it were a one, it's game 7 style kind of. Could Steph Curry go bonkers? Yep. Yeah. But no, over 4 game, they just don't have anyone that can really match up with Jokic. Steph Curry really is the offensive catalyst. I think they're a little long in the tooth, which makes defensive rotations a little bit late. I think their young guys are still pretty underdeveloped, and being for as good as they have been for so long, they don't have a lot of top tier talent on the bench or kind of in the waiting. Klay Thompson is an okay player now, but definitely not who he was prior to kind of those big injuries. And the Nuggets own the Lakers. I mean, own them in every sense of the word. So until they gave me some other reason to believe it, I don't care how they're playing. Nuggets have beat them on Kobe night, on LeBron night. Give me a night, and the Nuggets have got them. So I don't think that changes. That hasn't changed the matchup. AD really can't match up with Jokic. In all honesty, really, Phoenix has, with Nurkic, probably has one of the better defenders for Jokic. Nurkic is a guy that can step out. He's a guy that's active on offense too, and is going to work Nikola in a variety of spots, different than Gobert or guys like that are really going to be kind of stationary plot to plot. So I do think, again, that's the one matchup that we both agree worries us because of a variety of things. But I think giving Jokic a tough time, really, it just seems like the Suns right now. I think everyone else, they don't have an answer. And if you don't have the answer or an answer for the best player in the world, I would err on the best player in the world side. 10 out of 10.
Yep. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, it's hard. I do worry about the Lakers just because I think they would get up and give everything they had.
But I think everyone's gonna. They're the reigning champs. It's not. They're not just like the 1 seed. They're the reigning champs who are playing fantastic basketball and are now again the 1 seed.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, we swept them out of the playoffs last year, so there's an additional layer. We've beaten them 9 out of 10 or something like that.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yep.
The last 10 games we've played against them, I think, if you wanted to take a game or a series personally, that's the one. And you've got LeBron James, who's, arguably the best player ever, I think the Nuggets win, but I would much rather play Golden State in that matchup, just because I don't think that anyone can support Curry, right now on that team. Clay's lost a step, obviously, defensively and offensively. Draymond, I think, is still Draymond, but he's just so volatile. You don't know what you're going to get moment to moment. He's been shooting well this season, but, he still looks like a reluctant shooter in the games that I've seen him play. And so, I think if I was rooting for a matchup again in the first round between those two, I would definitely want Golden State, just because I think, I never want to sleep on LeBron. I never want to underestimate him. He's got an IQ that I don't know that matches Jokic, but is pretty darn close. The only problem with them is that I think that they've got a lot of good utility guys, but I don't know that they have anyone that can really kind of push them offensively to the next level. Austin Reeves is a good player. I think he's actually kind of a clutch player. We saw some big shots in the playoffs from him last year. But he hasn't really taken another step from what I can tell this season. And so I don't know. I don't know if he's enough as a third to kind of carry you when LeBron's on the bench or when AD is, kind of in his passive mode that he gets against Denver sometimes. And so I don't know. I like Golden State as the matchup there more than I like the Lakers, but regardless, I think the Nuggets take that matchup. Let's talk about Jokic. I mean, he's the MVP this season, right? Is there any debate? Are we putting anyone as a challenger for Jokic's MVP this season? I mean, obviously we're biased Nuggets fans, but would you put anyone?
Maybe Shy. I mean, he's played phenomenal for OKC. I think, really with that being kind of the other major player, especially in the Western Conference, I don't think anyone really. I think that Boston, Tatum is a good player, Brown's a good player, but they definitely win with a collective whole. So I think they kind of steal some votes from one another. So really, it's kind of voter fatigue. It's what you saw last year, right? Not that Embiid wasn't deserving of a MVP, but you saw we can't give it to him a third time. So do people feel like, well, he's Finals MVP, 2-time MVP, does really need a third one in 4 years, and that kind of influence. So I hope not. I hope that people look at the totality of the season. It's the team playing the best at the end of the season, the best record in the West. And he, again, has been the best player who plays his best in the best games. Like, the guy's been clutch. I can count on my hand the amount of games that I thought he was underwhelming. Right. And that says a ton. That says a ton to how good he is and the way that he is able to maintain his impact in every facet of the game. Like, he doesn't just put on a scoring hat. He scores, rebounds, and dishes while facilitating the entire offense. Keeps guys engaged. You see Michael Porter Jr. again have another resurgence. The guy doesn't get froze out because Nikola Jokic knows and understands what it means to have him playing well as we go into the playoffs. I think that's a really good team mentality, but they don't do that if their superstar doesn't buy in. So I think it's his trophy to lose. And I think, in my opinion, he's starting to get in rarefied air. Now, there's been a lot of things that Jokic has done that are, the names on that list become pretty small, or just him. I think now you're getting into, 3 MVPs out of 4 years, and the 1 year he didn't get it, he's Finals MVP. For a franchise that hasn't seen this level of success ever, in an era where they worked harder than ever to maintain success.
Yep.
So, I think you really got to start looking at his impact on the game, and what he's accomplishing is more than generational. It's LeBron-ish, it's Kobe-ish, it's Michael-ish, right? It's Birdish magic. Like, you're getting your name in there where they're, one word guys, Jokic, right? Like, that guy is that guy. I was trying to explain to my 6-year-old, like, just how good he is at basketball. And it's super hard. Right? Like, just, he does everything well. And in a game, all of it can go unnoticed. Then you look up, it's 32, 16, and 8. Like, whoa. How does someone have a quiet,
for sure.
Oh, yeah, he was really good, right? Like, oh, no, he was exceptional. Like, dear goodness gracious. It's phenomenal. And we have front row seat, and it doesn't get old. Like, it just doesn't get old.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that anyone pushes Jokic right now. And I think it's funny. It's funny that last year, I think the thing that worked against him was this conversation that he's had no postseason success. And now this is probably the same conversation that's happening this year that is kind of distancing him between Shea and Luka and some of those other guys. And it's funny. I think Giannis has had really great numbers. I would probably put him second right now. But for some reason, no one is kind of biting at that. And I don't know if it's just kind of what's felt like the inevitability of the Nuggets kind of rising to number 1 in the West. I think that there's probably a consensus group that feels like the West is a tougher division than the East, and so maybe that's why some of these West guys are getting elevated a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that. I think it's absolutely it, right? So in the NBA.com has their their MVP ladder. So I'll count us backwards real quick.
Sure.
From 10. So Anthony Edwards, Devin Booker at 9, Kevin Durant 8, Kawhi Leonard at 7, Domantas Sabonis at 6. So all 5 of those players are Western Conference. Yep. Mm-hmm. Your first person checking in from the Eastern Conference is Jason Tatum at 5. A season stats of 27.1, 8 rebounds, 5 assists a game. So pretty good. Luka Doncic at 4, 34 points, 9 rebounds, 9.8 assists per game. So getting into he's scoring 34 a game and almost a triple-double, right? And then you get Giannis at 3, 30 points, 11 rebounds, 6.4 assists per game for the Bucks. So you got your 2 Eastern Conference players, and then you got Shai Gilgeous Alexander. Yeah. So 35.5 and 6.5. And then you got Nikola, which is interesting, right? So his stat line's 26, 12, and 9. So probably one of his more modest statistical seasons. But at far, and they kind of even write it in here that, his 34, 14, and 11 play against the Knicks, who had won 4 in a row. And then, the gritty road win where he had 35 points, 16 rebounds. Like a lot of his stat deficiencies are games that are because he sits for a quarter, fourth quarter. Like it's not lack of that, but he's toning it down because he doesn't need to, or they're sitting him down, and not his ineffectiveness. Every big game that there has been, whether it's been the Celtics, whether it's been the Lakers, whether it's been the Timberwolves, whether it's been go check all those stat lines in all those games. The guy is phenomenal, and it's his to lose.
Yep. I think it's fun, to see Jokic. I feel as though he's almost kind of cruised his way through the season. Like he's kind of on autopilot. You can see kind of when he goes into a game, you don't know what you're going to get night to night as far as how he's going to approach the game. But you can kind of see as the game kind of unfolds, what his intention is in that game. So sometimes his intention is to put pressure on offensively early, and he does that. He did that against the Grizzlies last night. He kind of established himself, had 19 points in the first quarter, I think, 19, 21, something like that. And kind of, just got them out the gate with a hot start. And other times you see him very differential, against teams that, that aren't kind of providing that playoff caliber matchup. You see him intentionally trying to work guys into shots, and trying to get guys good shots to get them in the flow of the offense a little bit more, get Mike in the flow of the offense, run actions with him specifically to get him involved. And it's interesting to kind of watch that throughout a season. I've never watched a player that's kind of done that and kind of approaches each game with what seems like sort of an agenda, not the agenda isn't just to put up big scoring numbers and get wins. The agenda is to get everyone on the same page, in a game last night, he, like I said, he kind of established early, but they gave him opportunity to get Christian Brown involved. They gave him opportunity to let Peyton Watson cook a little bit off the bench, to let Reggie kind of run that pick and roll and see how he does in that and kind of get used to that because they're going to need that during playoff time. It's fun to watch them kind of ramp up to peak playoff form.
Yeah, it's like the way he feels, an opponent out. It's just, it's fascinating, right? Yeah. Just when he's going to be him at some point. Is it going to be in the fourth quarter, third quarter? Who's he going to get involved, right? Because I think that there's intention too with who he prioritizes facilitating the ball to and when, right? Is it get KCP involved early? Is it a game that you're going to get MPJ involved early? Or is it Jamal need to be involved? Or is it, like you said, he puts his head down and goes and gets buckets, puts the foot on the throat early, and nope, I want to rest in the fourth quarter, so let's just go get this done. So it's crazy. It is it's like Michael Jordan-ish, where it's just that he's going to be the best player on the floor every night.
Yep.
And rarely are you disappointed.
Yep, exactly. One more Nuggets question for you. So we're talking MVP. So let's talk one more. I want to focus in on KCP. I want to focus in on a little bit of conversation, some smattering here and there of individuals saying that he could make an NBA All Defensive team. I personally believe that he deserves that. I've watched the majority of the games this season, whether live or after the fact. And man, no one brings it every night like KCP, man. No one brings it every night like him. As far as, taking on challenges, often getting one of the toughest matchups, one of the best players on the other team every night. Just his ability to navigate screens, his ability to disrupt the offense is, I don't know, in my mind, second to none right now. But he's not getting the same buzz. So I just want to give KCP some love. What a great addition that was. We lost a guy in Monte that I know that the fans really loved. We lost a guy in Will Barton that had some longevity here. But man, that's turned into be quite a steal. Not so much as the Aaron Gordon trade was a steal, but this front office has put together some player heists, and KCP just brings something completely different to this team that we would certainly miss if he wasn't out there every night.
Yeah, this team is not a championship caliber team if that move isn't made. I don't think they graduate to that. With all due respect to Barton and to Monte Morris, what he provides is not only ability he gets the hardest assignment every night, him or Aaron Gordon. And I think those two guys encapsulates what this team is about, because both of them were scoring more points and getting more buckets on bad teams, and could have been, guys that are averaging 24 to 30 points a game if you're Aaron Gordon. Instead, they come here and they're the fourth or fifth option offensively. They have to do all of the dirty work and who they defend every night, and they do. And I have yet to hear a peep, and it doesn't come at the expense of them contributing on the offensive end, which I think oftentimes gets forgotten. When you're running around playing defense against Steph Curry for the majority of a game, and you can still go and chip in with 14, 16 points and a handful of rebounds. That's what KCP provides. So it's not only just, it's like Dante Jones back in the day was a phenomenal defensive player, but gave you very little on the offensive end, and you had to be okay with that because of what they were doing on the defensive end. That's not what you get. That's not what you get with KCP. He's going to give you, some clutch threes, a good cut to the basket, help facilitate the ball, good off-ball screens. So it's a guy that does and contributes on the offensive end, even though he's putting in all the work on the defensive end, and it's damn good work. So I'm glad that you brought that up pre-show about giving some love. I couldn't agree more, and hopefully they work out something where he's here for a few more years and they keep this window open.
Yeah. We'll move on from the Nuggets. We've been on the Nuggets for a minute. Maybe next show we'll get into Mike Malone, because I think he deserves some love too. But I don't think we got enough time for that. So let's transition. We're going to talk about the Colorado Avalanche. Took a loss last night. We're going for 10 in a row, and took a 2-1 loss to the Montreal Canadiens at home, which is, that's been a safe place for us to play most games. Whether we've been ahead or behind, mostly a lot of times coming from a win. So I got disconnected for a second. Can you hear me?
Yep. I can hear you.
Okay, sorry.
Can you hear me?
A little bit of technical problems. I can hear you.
You were saying.
Good. But yeah, I mean, this team is hot. This team is, in the running for first in the Central, and the best record in the West. I don't know if they end up there. The Dallas Stars are ahead of them by 2 points. They've got a game. They played one more game than Colorado, so there's a chance for us to get up to their level and take the division and take the first overall seed. They're gonna have to put in some work. They're gonna have to win a lot of games down the stretch. Dallas is a good team. Any teams in that playoff race that you would not want to match up with in the first round? I can kind of think of one off the top, which is Vegas. If they end up somehow being that wild card team as opposed to one of the top 3 teams in their division, that is not a team you want to see in the first round. That's defending champs. That's a lot of firepower. They made some moves at the trade deadline to get better. A lot of people think that, they had Stone on kind of I don't remember what is considered exactly. I don't know, short-term IR maybe, that they could bring back and kind of do some cap manipulation for the playoffs to allow them to have him in there. So I'm interested to see whether that happens or not. I've kind of heard that injury to Stone is maybe more serious than people initially thought. I think it's like a spleen or something, which seems pretty serious.
But
that's the team that kind of jumps out right away as the team that I would not want to see.
Yeah, I think that's the team that I would not want to see.
Yeah,
for sure. The Predators are making a big push. They were, kind of, I wouldn't say dead in the water, but definitely kind of an afterthought. So after winning 6 in a row and 8-0-2 in their last 10, they're climbing up the point totals, and someone that the Avalanche could see early. But again, it's the Golden Knights. They're defending champs, and with a large majority of their players in tow, especially if that Stone injury, if they're able to get him back, that is one I wouldn't want to see. But I also they would have to see them potentially at some point. But let's do it in round 2 or round 3 when hitting their stride. McKinnon is playing out of this world. Home point streak now moved to 35 games, which is an Avalanche record. Passing Joe, passing the old boss, which is always interesting when you have to walk around the guy whose record you just beat. And then his overall point streak to 19 games, second time this year. It was a point streak of 19 games, which is it's pretty special. What Nate's done this year is just, he took his game to a level and then decided to continue. I thought a really cool quote though came from Zach Parise. Zach Parise, who's I think like a 19-year NHL vet, said that the Colorado Avalanche leadership makes you a better player.
Wow.
That's not, some guy that came from a crappy organization. This first time he's tasted some winning. That's a guy that's been around the league and won a lot of hockey games. So the ship was odd early, right? There was something wasn't right. There was a closed door meeting, and Devon Toews came out and said, "Hey, we're getting our crap together," and that's enough. And it's been enough. I think really since then, this team has found their groove. Nathan McKinnon has been the catalyst, but I do think credit to their leadership. So Nathan McKinnon leaves with drive, dedication, and setting a standard. And there's been some guys who have stepped in for Landeskog and utilized their voice to reestablish the Avalanche standard. And then the acquisitions they made were not only players that are contributing on the ice, but I think really fit into the fabric of the team. And I think They're playing really good hockey right now. You worry, like when you get on a streak that hot, is like there's nowhere to go but down, really, right? When you're
Right.
not losing at all, and now that they stumbled a little bit, will it be a perpetual fall, or will it be we're going to drop one or two here, but kind of like the Nuggets, nope, we'll drop one. We're going to get back on the horse and get some games back in the pocket. I think the Avalanche right now, in my opinion, are much more of that team.
Yep.
I don't think that they are, flash in the pan hot right now. I think that they are legitimate cup contender. We're a damn good hockey team hot. That said, it's all matchups all the time, right? You get a hot goalie, or you get a line that just is playing with synergy. Yeah, you can get got in a series, and I think this one is no different. So I would rather them get a good matchup to be able to continue to build on what they've done. But you got to beat who's on the schedule, and if it's Vegas, let's go.
Yeah, I mean, arguably, if you meet up with Vegas in the first round, that you're probably getting a tougher matchup out of the way early. That might kind of spur you forward. So it could
maybe, right? And if that Stone injury, maybe if that one is they might get him back in the second round. Then maybe that's you want to get them in the first.
Right.
They don't have all of their all their firepower ready to go. So you never know. Like you never know. You put your head down and win. And I think right now, them just focusing on playing the best hockey they can before the end of the season is really what will matter. But definitely an interesting thing when you start looking at where they're at with seeding and those kind of things. I think they've squashed my concern really about the Oilers, the Canucks as of late. I think the Stars are going to be a rough one. But really it's the unknown with Vegas because of who they have been, how well they're playing. And you can't put away what they did last season in a pretty dominant fashion.
Yeah.
So that one will be one that's that'll hang over until they beat them, and that would be a really fun series. I can't say, right? You got the last two Cup champions playing really good hockey, but for that sake, let's just get someone else for fun.
Yeah. Let's switch it up a little bit. Let's ease into the playoffs instead of just jumping face first.
There's no point in that. Is there any way Nathan MacKinnon doesn't win the Hart before we go?
Yeah, no. I think that the Kucherov fans, the Kucherov faithful, the Tampa fans have a gripe. Tampa's playing really good hockey right now. Kucherov has kind of single-handedly, been the hero of that team. I think he's done probably more with less. So I'd say if you were going to give it to someone else, it'd be Kucherov. However, I don't think that what he's done is as dominant as what we've seen from Nathan MacKinnon. And this is almost, Cup MacKinnon was amazing. That season was really great. Obviously, that postseason was, one for the record books for MacKinnon. I just think that this postseason, for whatever reason, is going to be next level MacKinnon. I heard it. I don't remember what exactly I was watching or listening to, but they were talking about the Avalanche and Nathan MacKinnon specifically. And they said of all of the players in the NHL, MacKinnon has the most Mamba mentality, which I thought was a really great comparison.
I concur.
It's like one of those things, like you think of Jokic and how he's going to be the MVP and that personality, and you think of MacKinnon and his personality. They're very different. I think the core of what they're doing is really similar. I think it's about culture. I think they're both pretty humble guys. I think Mac probably gets a little more fired up and is a little more fueled by some rage and intensity than Jokic is. I think Jokic is more lead by example, kind of the quiet behind the scenes leader. Yeah. And MacKinnon's probably a little more, in guys' faces. But I think that for whatever reason, it's worked. I think that he must strike a good balance in the locker room with his leadership ability and kind of having those expectations. We heard that cup season, how intense he would get at times about his diet, about what his teammates were eating, and their routines. Like, you don't hear that with a guy like Jokic. And so it's interesting to see in Ball Arena two teams that are, arguably at the top of each of their leagues, and kind of how they've built to where they've built and how they've kind of assumed that personality of their superstar.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's the synergy, the differences between the two, winning championships in the last couple years, the anguish of early rounds exit, right, or mid rounds. Both the superstars, I think, being underappreciated. And then some of the season, like what Nathan McKinnon is doing this year is, it's special. The books, DraftKings, FanDuel, have Nathan McKinnon hands down favorite, minus 250 and minus 300 respectively. So it would be a shock if it's not him, which just, like you said, you have two of the teams that are playing at the top of their sport in the same building, owned by the same group, that are, they are culturally sound with their core group, head by a superstar, and how they really lean into that. Coach who knows how to push the right buttons, has been through a lot with their groups. It's just, having one team like that is cool. Having two is just, it's special. I'm glad we're handling it better than like Boston.
Right. It's fair. Very fair.
Just saying.
Yeah, just saying. Well,
forget about it.
We're going to keep, obviously, we're going to be watching the games as we come down the stretch here towards the playoffs for the Nuggets and Avs. We'll be touching on that as we move forward. And again, like I said, Broncos are square in our sights with the draft coming up. We'll probably get into the draft a little more as we get closer. I think we're about a month away from the draft, maybe actually probably exactly a month away.
Yeah, we're about 4 weeks out.
Yep. And so, we'll have some mocks, we'll have some fun stuff like that coming up. But we just got to enjoy these teams while we got them. And hopefully the Rockies can make a little bit of noise, can get a little bit of momentum and see what we've got in some of those young guys there. But, we're not going to count them out either yet. The season, is just beginning. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Appreciate your time. As always, if you want to hit us up on Twitter, you can, Doc and JT on Twitter. Shoot us a DM. Let us know what you want to talk about. We're happy to just talk sports, outside of the pod with you too, and just bounce ideas off each other. But thank you again so much. We appreciate you. Go all of our Denver sports teams. Go Nuggets and Avalanche specifically right now.
Oh.
And, if you need a sports opinion, call a doctor. Thanks, guys.
That's right.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flame out. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute, work hard for the car, so that's why it's all